Good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Connor Fowler.
And I'm Matt Smith.
And welcome to Apocalypse Duds. We have a special show today, continuing our Southern tour. Today we welcome the indomitable William Fleming, Baltimore City educator, scientist, effortless style icon, and much more to be discovered. William, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Connor. Thanks, Matt. How are you?
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you for being here.
It's been a rocky road, but here we are, all in the same room, listening to each other talk.
Quite a rocky road.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's your day been today, William?
So currently it's spring break and it's been pretty relaxed for the most part. I'm still in Baltimore City, so I'm not on vacation as in like
Nice.
out of town. But
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
Yeah. What's the weather like there for both of you guys?
I saw on a marquee that it was 48. I don't typically check the
Oh
weather.
shit.
It didn't feel that cold. It didn't feel that cold to me though, so
It was, there was, when it's like there's a blanket of moisture in the air? That's what's going on.
Good times. Good times. I will not regale you with the high 60s and sunny day that I had. So
Damn you.
Sorry to throw that in your face.
We always get the weather. We always get your weather. So it's coming for us next.
Exactly.
very true.
So to get into it, William, we'll start at the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I was born in Augusta, Georgia, and I spent my beginning years in a town not far from there, but my family then moved to Atlanta. So all three of those places I call home, but mostly Atlanta, Georgia.
Nice. What just out of curiosity for me, like what neighborhood or like area in Atlanta were you in?
So that's Southwest.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah,
Like Sylvan Hills, East Point?
like Sandtown,
Okay.
Camp Creek,
Okay.
that area.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say Sandtown?
Yeah, there's a
There's
it's
a
recent.
Sandtown
It's now
there
called
too?
Yeah, it's now called the city of South Fulton or something.
Oh, fuck. Okay. I didn't realize
That's so funny.
that got
And
engulfed in
Fulton
Sandtown.
Avenue. There's a Fulton Avenue that leads to Sandtown in Baltimore.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was some lawyer or legislator.
Oh,
We
Right,
tend we
totally.
tend to
Oh, yeah.
recycle names.
Yeah, certainly. Well, that's sick, man. Like being someone that's been in Atlanta forever. Like it's always fun to meet people that actually grew up in the city, versus like a suburb that moved into it, which I am definitely like, that's a part of me. But I've been here since 2002, so.
Oh, that's some time. That's pretty long.
Yeah, it is my favorite city in the country, and shout out to Atlanta, Georgia. But happy to be talking to another Atlantan.
Likewise,
So what do you remember kind of being like the first memory of you paying attention to clothing?
I remember my mother would so she would get her hair done quite frequently, as a lot of Black women do. And she, working professional, but there was a children's clothing store right next to, or perhaps on the same block as the beauty salon. And I remember my sister and I would go with her, and there would be all of these really, really nice, what I believe were custom made clothing and accessories and toys, and also books. And so the displays would be really, really nice. And she would go and get things for us for any special occasion, or if it was school was starting and it was summertime and we needed the staples. But I remember looking at those things and thinking, wow, that looks really, really good, but questioning like, why is it that these colors look good together, or this type of fabric, or I was always curious as to why certain things would be pieced together. So that started really, really, really early.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Like how early do you think that was?
That was maybe I'll say fourth or fifth grade.
Okay. All right. And what kind of stuff, did you see the people that you were around wearing
I,
while you were growing up?
I was going to say we went to church. My parents are very religious, so we were in church every week. And so for the most part, you would see men in suits, just typical sack suits, 2 or 3 button, nothing really flashy or overdone. But the
Right, just
women,
classic Southern.
exactly right. The women, though, because just of how society is structured, would have a little bit more leeway and expression. And
Right.
so you would see all different sorts of things. You'd see, oh, and I didn't really see a lot of fur in the South, but certainly jewelry, different types of fabrics, and all these really different prints. I thought those were pretty cool. And of course, shoes were a thing, and handbags were a thing too, and hats. And some men wore pretty decent hats as well. Yeah, so I saw some pretty nice things for the most part.
Yeah, you were kind of taking it all in, not just like the guys in suits, but also
hmm
just like the color pops and things for on the more femme side of shit.
Yeah,
When
yeah, for sure.
you identified a type of suit too, right? The sack suit.
Right, right.
The we use the word indomitable already, but the sack suit is like a sort of bulletproof institution
hmm
in American tailored clothing.
And it's so practical. That's what I like about it. It's very, very practical. I appreciate that.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally, totally.
hmm
It
Every
can
now and
carry stuff.
again, for certain, yeah, you sure can, and I like that, especially at work. But I was going to say, every now and again, you'd come across what I guess young people now, or at least millennials, will call like a beau, like a guy who is kind of fancy. So like bow ties, or like he might wear saddle shoes, or the
Uh huh.
seersucker type guy. You
Right,
know that,
right.
that. And I mean, this is not a younger guy. This is someone that's older, so he has time and probably a pension or some kind of retirement fund, and just pretty cool, laid back, but also very stylish.
Yeah, just
The
someone that
dream.
stepped out a little bit more than others.
Yes, my father had a very close friend whose name was Otis, who was an impeccable dresser in that regard. Tall, very thin. He was from Cleveland. Very, very nice dresser. Yep.
So I guess we'll cut to the chase here a little bit. Why did you go into teaching, and why in Baltimore?
Yeah, so I left graduate school with a degree, 2 degrees in biology. And I was planning on going to Seattle. I was either going to go to Seattle or New York, but I was more set on Seattle to do research in infectious disease. There was a leading HIV and AIDS researcher that I talked to, and he was really interested in me shadowing him or just working under him. And then I thought, well, maybe I should just, cast my net a little bit wider. And so I applied for TFA, but they didn't have any positions teaching
And
biology. And I'm like,
TFA is.
oh yeah, Teach for America, Teach for America. Yeah. Um,
I think a lot of people will know, but anyway.
yeah. And to be fair, I mean, that graduate degree was pretty tough. It just took a lot out of me, especially having gone straight into it after undergraduate. So I thought, well, maybe I should do something a little bit more relaxed. So TFA unfortunately didn't have a position for me. Um, and so they said, but we really like you. We can refer you to one of our partner organizations. And so they introduced me to Urban Teachers, talked with them for about 2 weeks, and then they gave me an option to go, three options. They said Baltimore, DC, or Dallas, I think. And I thought, no, I can't go to Texas. I absolutely can't go to Texas,
Good
and I
call.
can't go to
Good
DC,
call.
and I can't, and I can't go to DC. So Baltimore was the only option. So yeah, I chose that. And plus, Seattle was just
Hey.
so far away. I was just like, that's really far away from my family. It's really far. So
Yeah. So I was in Baltimore recently, and I like being, a longtime Atlantan, I noticed a lot of similarities between the two cities. Have you kind of had that same experience being in Baltimore?
I would say I could see some, but they are unique in that regard, though.
Totally, totally.
There's parts of Baltimore City that remind me of like old Fourth Ward,
Yep.
um, or like Ponce. And then of course there's parts that remind me of, where I'm from, or like Druid Hill. Druid Hill and Homewood are very similar to me.
Right,
So,
right.
so I could see why you would say that, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It like, I mean, I don't know when the last time you were down here, but seeing as how your family's from here, I would imagine that like you're down here like somewhat often.
Hmm.
But one of the things that struck me about like the difference was how gentrified Atlanta has become, and like
Hmm.
how little uh, corporate like or national corporate shit I saw in Baltimore, which was really really kind of shocking. Like there was not that much of it there, so like the gentrification
It
has
is
been
reviled. It is a despised place.
yeah yeah like
Corporations leave Baltimore because it's in Maryland, which is in a very expensive state. And so if you were to have, say, your headquarters in Baltimore, you would be paying tons of money and you would be in Baltimore, as many people would think, right? Um, so it just is all poisonous, really.
yeah. It, I don't know. It was just rad for me to see like a place like Baltimore that has like some similarities, but they actually keep the old shit instead of just knocking it down and
Hmm.
making it into some like, hyper corporate development like they do here.
Yeah, that's what I really appreciate about it. I
Totally.
do like that. Because what I aside from the social aspect of gentrification, the architecture itself is concerning because it's not always number one the best materials, or two the best design or the smartest design. And so that certainly cuts away to me from quality of life, because it's like, well, this is going to have to get torn down in another 20, 30 years anyway. So there's this
Right.
constant evolution. People are constantly moving around, which is going to happen. But I think that we just have to be a little bit more careful.
Totally.
Um, and I appreciate how, even though I think sometimes people can go overboard, how citizens or members of a neighborhood can come together and enact maybe zoning laws or policies so that certain buildings can't be torn down, or that they
Right.
can be restored or be on the national registry. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, there is a certain respect for history in that way, but I think that it's kind of connected to my earlier point about like people just staying out of Baltimore. Like people
Hmm.
are not knocking stuff down because people are not itching to build buildings in Baltimore. But it seems now that the kind of course has changed completely.
Hmm. Hmm. I uh, I don't know. When I first came here, I could immediately sense that it was underpopulated. I was like, "Whoa,
Well, it's
there are."
not just it is not underpopulated. It is like grossly underpopulated from like one uh I think from 1.6 million down to 400,000. Like that is the toll of white flight.
Mm, mm, wow, that's
Baltimore used to be the
crazy.
fifth biggest city in America.
Yeah, I did hear that. I was reading that book, The Black Butterfly, which talks about
Hmm.
housing and segregation, and how Baltimore was a prominent city in the beginning. I don't know exactly when that started, maybe the 20th century. Um,
Yeah, I
but
think that's
that
when it
is,
like with industry.
and as like you were just saying, because suburbs started to boom, and then highways and interstates were being built, tearing down certain neighborhoods, and people, like you were just saying, they didn't have a desire to live in the city anymore. it didn't have, I guess, the amenities for people to want to raise a family. So it's kind of depressing, but it's the reality.
And I can see it. Like, you think cities can be yucky places, but like they don't have to be. And certainly this one isn't like a cursed place, you know.
Hmm.
But there
Right.
is like a sort of a pall over Baltimore
I mean, I
that I
think
don't
that,
think other cities in America have really. Like,
yeah, I feel
Mm.
like Baltimore and Chicago in particular are two places like that. And like I've seen a lot of cities in the country, um, and a lot of the complaints about this about things are literally just being in a city where there are people around you at close quarters, and it's like, yo, can you just be a normal ass human being?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
there's, there 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 are things about living in very close proximity to a lot of people that I don't think that people moving into that space understand. And it's like, yo, just stay in the suburbs.
Right. I was telling one of my colleagues, her wife, that the perception of Southerners being somewhat pleasant or hospitable is because we don't have to wake up and kind of elbow our way through the day. We have a lot of
Right,
space,
right.
and coming here, I mean, it's not a hustle and bustle all the time, but it certainly can be a lot more rushed than a place like Atlanta or Nashville or New Orleans or Savannah or Charleston or any of those places.
Totally,
Um,
totally.
yeah, I don't think that I don't know. I don't know. Cities are they're meant to be cosmopolitan. They're meant to be places for civilized people, but I do get what you mean when you say that not everyone follows that same rule of thumb.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. I mean, let's be honest here. The Nextdoor app, whatever the fuck website, is a great example of this. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, everyone hates Nextdoor. I only personally joined it because I found two like dogs that were roaming around, but it's like these people are complaining about the dumb shit that goes into living very very close in a city to other people. And there's,
Mhm.
for a very elementary definition of it. But, it's really fun to like, I don't know, just hear the differences in people living in these like metropolitan areas and what they want versus what people think it's actually like.
What stood out to me when I first moved here, though, aside from it being grossly underpopulated, was the very pronounced amount of public art, the murals, the
Oh fuck
sculptures.
yeah!
yeah,
That was
uh-huh,
very new to
absolutely.
me. That was very new to me. Very, very new. And I appreciate it. I really do because I don't see that back home.
Yeah,
Um,
totally,
There's one right
totally.
behind the school. There's like a huge mural right behind the school you can see from the playground.
hmm.
And the school
Yeah.
itself has tons of art on it.
Yeah, which I love because art is just, it's amazing in every description. So, even when you're suffering, I mean, art can lead you to think about a number of different components of the human condition. So, I like that that's readily available and accessible in the city.
Yeah, it's like you should be inundated with it, really.
Right, right.
So I guess now that we are back to the teaching, what do you wear going into the school?
Hmm, it depends on the day. I mean, you know, you know that. But
Right.
for the most part, it's going to be something casual. I get well, I shouldn't say casual, but something very relaxed. I might do a suit and tie, but that's not every day. I try to get it in at least once a week. Um, but I do like to have a jacket or a blazer to be more specific. Um, Dress shoes, I'll wear tennis shoes maybe once or twice a week because I mean, second graders they do have you running, ripping and running, so I do need to be somewhat comfortable there.
You
Um,
have to be agile, really. Like,
yes, yes,
and
yeah,
you're
yeah.
much more athletic than I am, and what you have to do daily, basically. But it can be an intense job.
Yes, yes, picking up kids. Oh, and then I rarely ever, I mean, I'm always super tired when I'm sitting down. Like, I'm
Yeah,
rarely sitting down, so having to stand all day is, I have to factor that in when I'm thinking about style. But I like to be comfortable and nice. So, yeah.
to say there are a few things I notice that are just great. Like, I have taken the pencil in the pocket from you. I think
Oh,
it just is like it just is an absurdist detail that I
mm.
really connected with. So
You mean
just like a
in the,
pocket full of pencils
oh
in the
yeah.
sack coat
Uh,
in the tweed jacket, just like
oh
in the
yeah.
waist pocket.
Yeah, yeah.
10 pencils, yeah, that's like
Like
10 sharpened pencils.
and it's practical. It's one of those form fits function type things because they never have pencil or rarely do they have pencils. And so to cut down on having to spend 5 minutes sharpening pencils, I'll just keep them on me. And it's fortunate that there's actually enough room in that both pockets as well. There's something in all of those pockets. Trust me.
Oh, that's the coolest fucking thing on earth, man. Like
Hmm.
Matt, you have to say the quote about the purse.
about the navy blazer is the like masculine version of the little black purse.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can throw shit in all of the pockets, both
Hmm.
outer and inner, and use that shit. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I've definitely gotten weird looks in my life because the dudes that I worked with had some, like weirdness about using the pockets, and I'm like, dude, if there's pockets, I'm using them.
Right. They wouldn't be there for nothing. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Exactly, dude. Like when we were getting, kind of researching and getting ready for the interview, like Connor kind of gave me a little bit of a rundown, because you guys know each other, and I was like, this is where the undercover style icon came from because it's shit like this. Like
Hmm.
you're not you're not trying to be a blog dude, or that's a dated fucking term. You're not trying to be an influencer, but like you're wearing
Right.
cool shit, looking cool, and using it for its purpose. And I was like, this guy's fucking awesome.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So,
Right.
like there's like a nonverbal communication through clothing, and it's like, you're not even like giving it a second thought. You're just stuffing some pencils in your pocket because that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And it would be different if this was, if I was out on the town or, hanging out, but it's work still. So of course you have
Totally.
to you can still look nice, but you can't be too laid back.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Then that's the communication too. Like, you show up to work, you don't really have it together. The students are very aware of that.
Hmm.
If it's
Hmm.
going to be a movie day, like, the kids know what's going on and they will
Right, they
strike.
can tell. Right, right. They certainly that sense. Oh my goodness, the awareness. Even though that they can't always articulate that or say it plainly, they can certainly pick that up. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
They're super, super perceptive. They
Mm.
really are, like, just each one of them is a genius.
Soaking it all in.
Dude,
I'll
what?
say too. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. Continue your thought.
I was going to say one of the things that they talked to us about, or at least stressed in particular when I was going through my teacher training, was that you are like all day a model. And I certainly grossly
Yeah.
underestimated I grossly underestimated what they meant when they said that, but you certainly are because they look at everything and notice and critique everything. Everything. Um, which is, I think, a little bit more intense than walking down a runway or being in a catalog because people can actually see you and engage with you. So
What are
that's
those black things on your face, Mr. Connor? What are those red things on your face, Mr. Connor? Yeah,
right, right,
it's every single thing. And if they're not like being mean about it, they are not even they're not even aware that rude is something that could be. It just is
right.
an innocuous question, basically.
hmm hmm I have come across some kids, and this is why I tend to tone it down a little. I've certainly toned it down since I came to Sandtown, but like some days I'll come in and they'll be like, "Why do you look so nice?" I remember one day Craig was like, he was like, "Where did you get those clothes?" I was like, I can't even remember what I had on that day, but it was just, just a regular get up. And I was like, I don't even know. And then Kyle one day was like, "Why do you look so nice?" I thought that was pretty funny though. So yeah, because of that and me just trying to be sensitive, even though they do wear uniforms, um, I don't like to come and, do it up. I just like to look, pretty well put together.
What's the what's the funniest thing the kids have roasted you for, as far as like how
Oh
you
shoot,
look?
shoes, because
Shoes.
yeah, and when I say shoes, I mean sneakers because they'll wear, Nikes or Air Jordans or something, the newest latest. And me, I'm the complete opposite of that, at least at this age, because I don't find it useful at all. I'm not a sneakerhead.
Yeah,
And so I have these like Reebok Club C's that I've had for a while, and they're like old and dirty and kind of grimy. And so they're like, "Oh, your shoes." They're talking. Your shoes are talking, Mister.
totally, dude, totally.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Uh,
pretty much it, though. If I'm dressed professionally, then they tend to not say anything negative, which I like. I appreciate that.
I mean that I feel like that's kind of a like a remarkable thing for what you teach second grade. Like they don't have anything
Yes.
to say about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny, man. So what Connor has told me that you're kind of a music aficionado, and so like music and clothing for us on the show always has a tie-in with each other. So what kind of music are you into, and how do you think that's influenced your style over the years?
Hmm. Hmm. That's a good question.
I know that's a hard question, but
So I would love to say that trap music is number one, but it's not. Although I do, uh,
yeah, man, it. We all enjoy it from time to time,
and of course, me being from, where I'm from, is I do love it. Don't get me wrong, and I think a lot of people kind of think that it's in poor taste, but I like the lyrics, and of course, I do like the rhythm.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
some of that '90s R&B is pretty good, but I think number one is indie rock.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
yeah, I love indie rock. I love rock music. I really do. I really, really do. There's a band you all have probably heard of them, Khruangbin. I love all of their albums. It's a guy, two guys and a girl. I like Dave Matthews too. I'm not really sure what genre that is. Is that like bluegrass?
Uh,
Adult.
yeah, I guess adult rock. I don't
I
really
was
Yeah.
know
gonna
how to.
say yeah, like adult contemporary.
Yeah, I'm pretty invested in the rock category.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I like rock music.
With a little bit of trap thrown in sometimes. So,
Yeah, yeah.
it's you're from like you said, you're from Atlanta. You gotta love that to an extent.
I'll tell you that I've only been to Tennessee once, but country music is growing on me.
Oh fuck yeah, dude.
my dad used to listen to some country. He listened to a lot of blues and a lot of jazz, and I appreciate those two respectively. But I like the
Uh,
yeah, he listened to a lot of country. Well, some country, blues and
yeah.
jazz. I think
Okay.
jazz is his favorite
Okay.
genre. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. That's a nice like staple of shit. And did you see some of those guys grow like the pictures of them growing up and the other musicians that you've been into? Did that play a little bit of role in how you wanted to perceive yourself?
Absolutely. Well, not necessarily aesthetically,
Okay.
but I did appreciate just their posturing, the things that they said and their outlooks on life.
Totally.
Um, the neo soul artists, which are somewhat like R&B artists, but not so much,
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
this. We've always kind of viewed them as being what we now say woke, but the term back then was conscious.
Right.
And I think
Right.
some people still say
Mm.
conscious, but I appreciate that because there was a respect for awareness and always a very important theme in the things that they did or in the music that they created. Um, and so, even if I wasn't really down with what they were wearing, I would certainly be aligned with their outlook on life.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Who
I'm,
like what kind of artists are we talking about here? It's just
I was
not
about to say, I'm thinking about Andre 3000.
hell yeah.
I'm think I'm thinking about Music Soul Child, um, Luther Vandross for certain, although he's more so R&B.
Yeah, certainly,
Um,
certainly.
my parents loved a lot of those male singers. Smokey Robinson for certain, Earth, Wind and Fire, all
Yeah,
of them.
dude.
All of them.
They
Yeah.
just played in Baltimore last night.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. I
Damn.
hate that
I
I
don't know
missed
where,
that.
but
Yeah,
they just played last night.
y'all should have come to
Probably
see this
for
shit.
Yeah.
yeah, there's some pretty good artists in Atlanta and in the
Oh,
South in general.
totally, man, totally.
Typically understated.
Yeah, yeah. What was it? Andre said Atlanta's got something to say at the
Yeah, the
Grammys in
South's
like
got something to
2000.
say.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like that's I don't know that to me is a part of growing up in the South is being exposed to like all of this insane, uh, just remarkable music across a million different genres, and it's like
Hmm.
like you can kind of feel like this influences that, and it's all interconnected.
I read on Wikipedia, and you can take that with a grain of salt. That
I think
it's
everything
the
on Wikipedia is true. That's what I tell the students. It's all true.
um, but there was a line on the page about the southeastern United States that it's the most written about part of the country, and I
Oh
think like
shit.
yeah, and I think that that's really interesting because it's hard to divorce myself from that culture because that is who I am, but I do sometimes try to look at it objectively.
Totally,
Um,
totally.
and I came across these two rappers from where are they from? New Orleans, the Suicide Boys. Two white guys, really, really, really good though, like super, super, super good music.
Sure.
And they kind of talk about or write about themes like dystopia, or I guess like the the industrial revolution and how the plantation kind of fell apart and how society fell by the wayside and all of the mania that came with that or the rage that came with that. And I think that that's pretty interesting. Of course, they talk about addiction and drug use as well, recreational drug use. But those themes I've seen represented in a number of different writers and musicians and artists in general. So I don't know. I think a lot of people had a pretty tough time once um, the Civil War ended,
Yeah, certainly, certainly.
Hmm.
and it was expressed quite strongly. and I recognize that people wish things were the way they were back then, although none of us were living then. I don't know how we
Right, right.
can assume that that was better, but I can respect people's preferences. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
I'm sure
something.
you've come across, I was to say, I'm sure you've probably come across a Southerner that has something to say about today's times and how
Oh,
times were better back then.
yeah, yeah. Far more than I would like, but
hmm
such is the
hmm
part of being in a society.
hmm
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, something
That's
like
one way of thinking about it.
right, right. If you're in the South, it's inevitable, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, it's pervasive.
Right. Something
We just
counterintuitive.
found out.
What?
Oh no, I was just gonna say we just we just found out someone in our family has a Confederate flag tattoo.
Oh,
Oh.
sweet.
Yeah, distantly, but even so, it's like, what are you doing?
There
Right.
was a large debate. We used to have some really interesting conversations back in like elementary and middle school because there were two girls, two sisters. Um, one was in our grade and the other one was a bit older, who wore those. You may have seen them before, Matt. The Dixie Chicks
Oh yeah,
shirts, I
yeah,
think. Yeah, they're pretty common.
yeah. This is
And
this is pre George W. Bush and them speaking out about him. Yes.
right. And people would be like, "Well, why are you wearing that?" You know what? Most black people didn't say anything, but just other white people would be like, "Well, why are you? What's the deal?" And they're like, "I'm proud, to be Southern, and I appreciate it." And I didn't feel any particular way about it at the time, and I don't right now because I just don't feel that I can control what somebody else thinks. But I just used to think like, wow, you really have a connection to this,
Right.
to all of what this represents. Like, okay. And they were agreeable, girl. They weren't like, they weren't mean or anything. It
Right.
was just
Right.
really interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of like I don't know. The word Dixie just has the worst connotations at this point, and like
hmm
aesthetically, it's a good word. Maybe originally it would have been a good word without its connotations, but yeah, thankfully, thankfully that's kind of died a little bit.
hmm hmm
It's
Yeah,
so
we.
hard to separate words like that. Like,
Oh, totally, totally. Yeah,
it's
we.
yeah. There have been efforts to reclaim the word Nazi, for example, that have had some measurable success, I suppose, but
Right.
it still is like, who is, I don't know, who is trying, I mean, we know who is trying to bring it back, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Not the people that we necessarily want to be around.
Not the
Just
listeners of this show,
no,
certainly.
certainly not. So, William, how do you acquire like a good percentage of your clothing? Like, do you thrift? Do you, buy secondhand? Does that play into it at all?
Yeah, I'd say that maybe 40% of my wardrobe came from my dad or like my uncles.
Oh, that's
And
sick.
then, yeah, and then I would say another 30% was either consignment or, secondhand thrifting. And then the rest I would just get off the rack. Yeah, like brand new, which I don't tend to like to do that. Because unless it's a really, really nice, fashion house, but if it's
Of course.
from
Yeah,
a department store, it's,
yeah.
no.
There's a very big gray area with buying stuff at like big box stores.
hmm hmm
Yeah. What kind of stuff did you get from your dad and your grandpa? You said.
Yeah, lots of military jackets.
Oh,
They love,
hell yeah! Speaking my
yeah,
language.
which is very, very hyper masculine looking. Like you don't even have to do much really to
Right,
put
right,
on one
yeah.
of these coats. But and they're also very warm. So I do appreciate. I've actually been to what do they call army supply stores to get like belts and shoes
Oh yeah,
and different
totally.
things because they are very very practical. Tons of ties. My father's a lot larger than me, so I can't wear his dress shirts. But other accessories. Um, his shoe size is smaller than mine. Some suits, some suits when he used to be my size, and so there's some suits he's had for some time that he's passed down. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it though.
Oh,
Sweaters, tons of sweaters, vests, sweater vests, cardigans.
So
nice.
this is the heirloom clothing that we were talking about in the lead up to this show. Some of the sort of cultural differences in thrifting, and we talked about clothes being passed down, as you said.
hmm
I was wondering if you had anything else to say about that.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a very fortunate circumstance to be in particular if the items are of good quality. And I appreciate that he was able,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
totally, totally.
both of my parents honestly teaching me that the fabric, of course, is important, the color is important, the cut is important, but I mean, a seamstress can always alter that for you. But when you start there and then venture out to whichever, designer you like or whichever department store you like, I think things get a little bit easier. When I go to stores now, I always check the not the label to see who made it, but what is it made out of?
Right, totally.
Mhm.
Because it's not worth it to me, at least in the long run, to use synthetic fibers. I mean, I have some things, but for the most part, they don't hold up. They really don't hold up as long.
I am anti-polyester. I will go on record. I will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same
And
polyester,
they
rayon,
are on
acrylic.
Earth forever,
Right, right. Like
right?
about
They created it, and now it's here forever.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I understand that like some of the best, vintage t-shirts are 50-50 cotton poly. I refuse to wear them. I cannot do about the only thing I can do with any polyester in it is like a hoodie or a sweatshirt. So
Mm.
I will go on record as being anti-polyester.
I
The show is
remember.
anti-polyester.
I
Yes.
remember the first time I ever got a cashmere sweater, and my mom had gotten it. It was around like Black Friday, so it was on sale. And when I felt it, it was like I was like, "What is this?"
Right.
And because it was so light for it to be as big as it was, and I was just dumbfounded that things could feel like that and look great. So textiles are really, I love that part about clothing as well,
Yeah. It's
especially
also
when it's
like
warmer.
that's not really a thing that I feel like the general population thinks about. Like
Yeah,
you had this instilled in you, and it's like mom and dad showed you how to be discernible with like
hmm
how something feels, and that's fucking awesome.
yeah, I love the way certain things feel. Like linen,
Oh,
linen.
oh yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't get that much of an opportunity like I do back home.
Right, right, yeah.
So,
It's gonna be linen time. It's gonna be linen time pretty soon in the school.
oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm a big linen fan.
Dude, yeah.
It's good. It's great. It's a great fabric. And people say like, "Oh, it gets wrinkly." I am a person
The
who
wrinkles make it,
wants
dude.
it to not. Yeah, yeah. I wanna. It's nice. It's a nice
hmm
thing, and it's not. It doesn't make you feel horrible when you're wearing it.
Yeah, and that adds some of the science into it too, because many of these fabrics, of course, they've evolved over time from different cultures, but the utility again being breathable. Because I always joke with my friends when people came to the United States and in particular like in the Gulf area, I'm sure that they were just suffering beyond description.
Oh
Like, can
God.
you imagine how hot Savannah and New Orleans was compared to England?
Right,
Like,
right.
my goodness, my goodness. I don't see how they made it. I don't.
I don't either, man. I do not either. I would
So
imagine.
much of it is like unbelievable. Like, why did you walk that thing so far? Whatever it was.
Right, right. Then you get the opposite in like Minnesota, where
Exactly.
people just kept going north, and they're like, "Oh yeah, fuck, this feels good,"
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how on earth? Uh, well,
Mm.
William, this has been a really fun conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to meet someone that's also from Atlanta/South. Uh, but the last question we wanted to ask was, do you have a favorite article of clothing?
A favorite article of clothing. I
Or
did.
or footwear, whatever. But is there something that you're just like, you know, die hard over?
Yes. I did, but I lost it
Oh
online.
no!
Yeah, it was a navy blue and like a burgundy. I think that J Press calls them schoolboy scarves.
Okay.
Very thick. It just looks. It was really really nice. Every time I wore that, people always complimented me. But
Oh
it was
man.
warm too. Yeah, and so I don't want to buy a replacement, but I think I have to because it was just I just really liked it that much.
Oh,
Yeah.
that might be the saddest answer to this question we've gotten yet. But if if I happen to come across one of these scarves, I will send it to you, no charge, just to
Thank you
replace
so
them.
much.
Of course, of
Yep,
course.
we got our peepers peeled.
Yeah, dude. All right. Just to kind of wrap things up here, we always like to give the guest a chance to shout out whatever they may want to. So have at it.
Sure. So my Instagram handle is waf waf .inc inc. If you'd like to go there to see some different photographs, I'm the guy with the high top fade.
Hell yes.
Yeah, the guy with the high top fade. And then I have a website, Hunt Hunt and hab.com, which I guess would technically be a blog, but it talks a bit more about like just social issues and politics related to Black men. So yeah, if you would like to connect on either of those, then you're more than welcome. And thanks so
Fuck
much for
yeah.
the opportunity, guys.
Dude, thank you again for coming on. This was a hella fun conversation, and yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So, everybody, thank you for listening. apocalypseduds@gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, concerns, we still get very few emails, so just send us a fucking meme. I don't give a shit. I am Matt Smith at Rebels Rogues.
And I'm Connor Fowler at Connor Fowler.
And at Apocalypse Studs on Instagram. And yeah, thanks again for listening.